Ryan's office revenge.
I lost the biggest presentation of my career in under 30 seconds. The CEO's daughter walked into that boardroom like she owned the place, which technically she did. She took the remote control right out of my hand and clicked off my slides. 4 German engineers were sitting across the table from us. 23 years of automotive experience just disappeared from that screen. We're going with my concept instead. She said, calm as you please. My name's Jack Morrison, and I'm 47 years old. Until 2 days ago, I was the senior engineering director at Autovolt Dynamics here in Detroit. When people heard that title, they probably figured I got there through politics or connections. Truth is, I started on the shop floor 23 years ago, turning wrenches and learning how things actually work. It took me 2 decades to work my way up to that corner office, and I earned every callus along the way. Look, I've been in corporate America long enough to know how these things usually play out. Young executives come in with fresh ideas and fancy degrees. Older guys like me get pushed aside for being set in their ways. But this wasn't about age or fresh thinking. This was about 4 years of real engineering work, getting stolen right in front of international partners who'd flown across the Atlantic to see what we'd built. The presentation that got hijacked was supposed to be the crown jewel of my career, revolutionary battery thermal management system for electric vehicles. Not the kind of thing you read about in trade magazines. This was breakthrough technology that could change how EVs handle heat stress. The Germans from Bavarian Motors had come specifically to evaluate our thermal control innovations. Here's the thing about automotive engineering, it's not glamorous work. You spend months testing metallurgical properties, running thermal stress simulations, calibrating cooling systems down to the millisecond. Most people see the fancy presentation slides and think that's the technology. They don't understand the thousands of hours of trial and error that went into making those curves actually mean something. The boardroom was exactly what you'd expect from a major automotive company. Polished wood, leather chairs, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Detroit River. Klaus Weber, the lead German engineer, had been taking notes throughout my presentation. His colleagues were leaning forward, asking technical questions about thermal coefficients and metallurgical specifications. These weren't marketing people. They were engineers who knew the difference between real innovation and PowerPoint promises. I was 45 minutes into explaining the titanium alloy cooling channel specifications when the door opened. Sophia Brennan walked in without knocking. She was 29, had an MBA from Northwestern, and happened to be the CEO's daughter. More importantly, she was the VP of Innovation, a title that seemed to mean whatever she wanted it to mean on any given day. She didn't apologize for the interruption. Didn't ask if this was a good time, just walked straight to the front of the room and held out her hand for the presentation remote. For a second, I thought maybe there was some emergency, some reason why she needed to take over. Then she started talking. Gentlemen, we're moving forward with an integrated approach to battery management, she said, clicking to the next slide. My slide. The thermal curve data I'd spent months perfecting appeared on screen. This holistic system represents the future of automotive energy storage. I stood there watching her present my thermal management data as if it were her strategic vision. The curve showing temperature distribution across titanium alloy cooling channels, that was 4 years of trial and error, countless late nights in the workshop, hundreds of failed prototypes before we got the metallurgy exactly right. Klaus Weber nodded slowly. The other German engineers started taking notes again. Within minutes, they were asking Sophia the same technical questions they'd been asking me. Questions about alloy composition, thermal transfer rates, the precise timing of coolant circulation cycles. She handled it smoothly, I'll give her that. Our integrated approach addresses those specifications through systematic optimization, she said. The thermal management protocols are embedded in the overall system architecture. It was impressive in a way. She'd taken my specific technical data and wrapped it in business school language that sounded authoritative without actually saying anything. The Germans seemed satisfied with the strategic overview. They didn't push for the detailed engineering specifications that would have exposed the gaps in her knowledge. Robert Brennan, the CEO and Sophia's father, sat at the head of the table with a slight smile. He nodded when she finished, as if this handoff had been planned all along. The Germans started applauding. Even Klaus Weber, who'd been grilling me about cooling channel specifications 20 minutes earlier, stood up and shook Sophia's hand. I closed my laptop and forced myself to smile. Well, I said, looks like you've got everything handled here. Then I walked out of that boardroom, down the hall, and straight to my office to clean out my desk. The thing about real engineering is that it's not just about understanding the theory. You can read all the technical papers you want about thermodynamics and metallurgical properties, but until you've actually felt the difference between a properly calibrated cooling system and one that's running just slightly hot, you don't really know what you're dealing with. The thermal management system I developed wasn't revolutionary because of any single breakthrough. It was revolutionary because of one very specific detail that I'd learned through pure trial and error. The titanium alloy cooling channels had to reach a precise temperature before the coolant circulation could begin. Too early, and the thermal stress would cause microscopic fractures in the channel walls. Too late, and the battery cells would start degrading before the cooling system could stabilize them. The timing window was exactly 12 seconds. Not 10, not 15, exactly 12 seconds from when the alloy reached the target temperature to when the coolant pumps could safely activate. It had taken me 18 months of failed tests to figure that out, and another 6 months to develop the sensors that could measure the timing accurately enough to make it work. That 12-second window was the difference between a working thermal management system and an expensive pile of overheated battery components. And it was the one thing that never appeared in any of my official documentation. See, 3 weeks before the presentation, I'd discovered something that changed how I thought about information security. I was working late in the shop, recalibrating the thermal sensors on a test battery pack, when I heard footsteps in the hallway outside. The building was supposed to be empty except for security. I looked through the workshop window and saw Sophia walking toward my workstation. She had a security badge in her hand, but it wasn't hers. The access codes on those badges are specific to each person's clearance level. Senior engineering staff had access to technical workshops and development areas. VPs had access to boardrooms and executive offices. There wasn't supposed to be any overlap, but somehow Sophia had gotten hold of a badge that opened my workshop door. She spent nearly 20 minutes photographing my project notebooks, taking pictures of thermal test data, copying specifications for the alloy cooling channels. I watched the whole thing through the window, too surprised to move. The next morning, I did 2 things. First, I checked the security system logs and confirmed that her regular badge had never been used to access the workshop areas. Second, I went through every piece of documentation in my files and removed any reference to the 12-second timing window. If she wanted to steal my work, she was going to get an incomplete version. Now, here's what I should have done. I should have gone straight to Robert Brennan and reported the security breach. Should have demanded an explanation for how his daughter got access to restricted technical areas. Should have played by the corporate rules and trusted that merit would win over family connections. But I'd been in this business long enough to know how that conversation would have gone. Robert would have asked Sophia about it. She would have come up with some explanation about strategic oversight or cross-functional collaboration. And somehow I'd end up being the paranoid engineer who couldn't work as part of a team. So instead, I decided to let the technology speak for itself. The day after I walked out of that presentation, Autovolt called an all-hands meeting to announce the new partnership with Bavarian Motors. The deal was worth $1.8 billion over 5 years. Assuming the thermal management system performed as promised, Sophia was promoted to Senior VP of Strategic Innovation. Robert Brennan gave a speech about the next generation of leadership taking the company into the future. That afternoon, Klaus Weber called me directly on my personal phone. How he got my number, I never found out, but German engineers have their ways. "Jack," he said, "we would like to schedule a technical verification demonstration. Can you have the full system ready for live testing next week?" I told him he'd need to talk to Sophia about that. She was running the project now. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I see Klaus said finally, "Perhaps you could provide some technical consultation for the demonstration." I thought about that for a moment. 23 years at Autovolt, 4 years developing thermal management technology that could revolutionize electric vehicle performance, a $1.8 billion partnership that could put American automotive engineering back on the global map. "I'm sure Sophia has everything under control," I said, and hung up. The live demonstration was scheduled for the following Thursday. Bavarian Motors sent a full technical team, not just Klaus and his colleagues, but their head of engineering, their VP of manufacturing, and 2 representatives from their board of directors. This wasn't a PowerPoint presentation. This was a full-scale test of the thermal management system under real-world conditions. Autovolt set up the demonstration in their main testing facility. Battery packs, cooling systems, stress testing equipment, and a full array of monitoring instruments. The automotive trade press was invited. Industry analysts flew in from across the country. This was going to be Autovolt's moment to prove that American innovation could still compete with German engineering precision. I wasn't invited officially, but I knew a couple guys in the testing department who owed me favors from back when I was still fixing equipment problems that the younger engineers couldn't figure out. They let me watch from the observation deck above the main floor. Sophia stood at the center of it all, explaining the integrated approach to battery management. She talked about thermal optimization protocols and systematic cooling architecture. The German engineers nodded politely and asked when they could see the system in operation. The test began with a standard battery pack connected to the thermal management system. Everything looked normal at first. Temperature readings were stable, coolant circulation was functioning, and the monitoring equipment showed all systems operating within expected parameters. Then they started the stress test, high-power discharge cycles designed to simulate extreme driving conditions. The kind of test that would reveal whether the thermal management system could actually handle real-world performance demands. The temperature started climbing. The battery cells were generating heat faster than the standard cooling protocols could handle. Everyone in that room watched the thermal readouts creep upward. 85 degrees, 90 degrees, 95 degrees. Klaus Weber leaned closer to the monitoring equipment. "When do the enhanced cooling channels activate?" he asked. Sophia checked her notes. The system should automatically engage the titanium alloy circuits when the temperature reaches the optimal threshold, she said. 100 degrees, 10.5 degrees. The temperature kept climbing. One of the German engineers pointed at the display. "The alloy channels are not responding," he said. "Why is the coolant circulation not engaging?" From my spot on the observation deck, I could see Sophia looking at the technical team from Autovolt. They looked back at her. Everyone in that room suddenly realized that they were watching a very expensive failure happen in real time. 110 degrees, 115 degrees. At 120 degrees, the first battery cell went into thermal runaway, a cascade of overheating that spread through the entire pack within seconds. Smoke started rising from the test assembly. The automatic safety systems kicked in, flooding the test area with fire-suppressant foam. The room fell completely silent except for the hiss of the safety systems. Klaus Weber walked over to the damaged battery pack and examined the thermal management components. The titanium alloy cooling channels were intact, but they'd never activated. The coolant pumps had never engaged. "This system," he said quietly, "does not function as specified." That's when Sophia made the mistake that ended everything. Instead of admitting the system had failed, instead of acknowledging that something had gone wrong with the technical specifications, she tried to blame the testing equipment. "There must be a calibration error in the monitoring systems," she said. "The thermal protocols were designed to engage automatically. If they didn't activate, it's because the sensors aren't reading the temperature correctly." Klaus Weber looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at the other German engineers. Finally, he looked at Robert Brennan. "We will need to suspend partnership discussions pending a complete technical review," he said. "This system does not meet our engineering standards." The automotive press reported the story that afternoon. Autovolt thermal management demo ends in spectacular failure. By the end of the week, the company's stock had dropped 35%. The board called an emergency meeting to discuss leadership changes. Sophia was quietly reassigned to special projects, which meant she no longer had access to any actual projects. 3 days later, I got another call from Klaus Weber. This time, he wanted to meet at a coffee shop downtown, away from corporate offices and official channels. "Jack," he said when we sat down, "we know you developed the thermal management technology. We also know why the demonstration failed." I stirred my coffee and waited. "The system requires specific timing protocols for the coolant activation." He continued, "Protocols that were not included in the technical documentation we reviewed." I nodded. "That's correct. Would you be interested in discussing a direct licensing agreement? Now let me tell you something about the automotive industry. When a German engineering company wants to license American technology, that's not just a business deal, that's a validation of everything you've spent your career building. These aren't people who hand out compliments or make decisions based on PowerPoint slides. They care about one thing: does the technology actually work? That conversation led to Morrison Engineering Solutions. I'd been thinking about going independent for years, but corporate security made it feel impossible. Turns out, when you're the only person who actually understands how your innovation works, independence becomes a lot more feasible. Within 6 months, I had licensing deals with Bavarian Motors, 2 other German manufacturers, and 3 American companies that wanted thermal management systems for their electric vehicle programs. The technology that Autovolt couldn't make work became the foundation for partnerships worth more than $2 and $1 billion. Here's what I learned from 23 years in corporate America. Merit doesn't always win, but competence eventually surfaces. You can steal presentations, you can copy technical diagrams, you can even clone security badges and photograph someone else's research notes. But you can't fake the kind of deep technical knowledge that comes from years of hands-on problem solving. Robert Brennan was removed as CEO 8 months after the failed demonstration. Autovolt never recovered from the loss of the German partnership. The company went through 2 more CEOs trying to rebuild credibility with international partners, but the damage was done. Word spreads fast in the automotive industry when a major demonstration fails that spectacularly. Last I heard, they were considering a merger with a Chinese manufacturer just to stay solvent. Sophia found a position at a consulting firm in Chicago. I'm sure she's doing well with strategic planning and integrated approaches to business development, the kind of work where presentation skills matter more than technical depth. As for me, I'm back to doing what I've always done best, building things that work, solving real problems with real engineering, and making sure that the people I work with understand the difference between presentations and performance. The funny thing is, I never meant for any of this to happen. I just wanted to protect work I'd spent 4 years perfecting. But sometimes protecting your work means letting other people fail when they try to steal it. That 12-second timing window is still the key to everything. It's documented now properly and completely in the technical specifications for Morrison Engineering Solutions, but only for clients who understand that real innovation comes from real engineering, not from confident presentations and integrated approaches. Klaus Weber visits Detroit every few months to review our progress on new thermal management applications. He always asks the same question. How did you know the timing was so critical? The answer is simple. You can't learn precision from PowerPoint slides. You learn it from 23 years of working with your hands, 18 months of failed experiments, and enough respect for the work to know when someone else doesn't understand what they're stealing. Autovolt thought they could replace experience with enthusiasm. They learned the difference the hard way. Morrison Engineering Solutions has 15 employees now, most of them former Autovolt engineers who understood what real innovation looked like. We're working on next-generation thermal management systems, advanced battery chemistry, and cooling solutions that could revolutionize not just automotive applications, but industrial energy storage as well. The technology keeps getting better, the timing keeps getting more precise, and every day I'm reminded that the best revenge isn't getting even, it's building something so good that everyone else realizes what they lost when they pushed you out the door. But here's the thing I really want people to understand about corporate politics and technical innovation. You can't PowerPoint your way through thermodynamics. You can't MBA your way through metallurgical engineering, and you definitely can't inherit the kind of hands-on knowledge that takes decades to develop. The Germans understood that from day one, they didn't care about Sophia's presentation skills or her strategic vision for integrated approaches. They cared about whether the cooling channels would activate at the right temperature, whether the alloy specifications could handle thermal stress, and whether the system would work reliably under real-world conditions. When those German engineers asked their technical questions, they weren't testing PowerPoint knowledge. They were testing whether someone actually understood the physics behind the pretty diagrams. Sophia failed that test, and no amount of strategic language could cover for it. That's what real engineering looks like, not the kind you present to investors, but the kind that actually works when you turn it on. Today, Morrison Engineering Solutions has contracts with automotive manufacturers across 3 continents. We're developing thermal management systems for everything from passenger vehicles to industrial battery storage facilities. The 12-second timing window that Sophia never knew existed has become the foundation for cooling technologies that major automakers now consider essential for next-generation electric vehicles. But success isn't just about the money or the recognition. It's about proving that experience and competence still matter in an industry that sometimes seems obsessed with youth and fresh thinking. There's nothing wrong with fresh thinking. Some of my best engineers are in their 20s and 30s, bringing new perspectives to old problems. The difference is, they respect the knowledge that comes from decades of hands-on work instead of trying to replace it with confident presentations. Klaus Weber stopped by the office last month to review our latest thermal control innovations. We're working on systems that can handle temperature fluctuations in extreme weather conditions, from desert heat to Arctic cold. The kind of engineering challenges that require both theoretical understanding and practical experience. You know, he said while examining our test data, we almost made a very expensive mistake with Autovolt. I adjusted the calibration on a thermal sensor while we talked. How's that? We were impressed by the presentation confidence, he said. In Germany, we have learned to be skeptical of people who explain complex engineering with simple business language, but American corporate culture is different. We thought perhaps this was normal. That made me think about something I'd never considered before. The Germans hadn't been fooled by Sophia's presentation. They'd been trying to be polite about American business customs. They knew she didn't understand the technology, but they assumed that was somehow acceptable in American corporate structure. Real engineering doesn't change based on corporate culture. I told Klaus, physics works the same way in Detroit as it does in Munich. He laughed. This is why we prefer to work with Morrison Engineering now. No PowerPoint presentations, just working prototypes. That conversation got me thinking about all the other experienced professionals who've been pushed aside for younger, more dynamic leadership. Guys who spent decades mastering their trades, only to watch someone with an MBA and family connections take credit for their innovations. Here's what I wish I'd understood 25 years ago when I was starting out. Competence is its own form of job security. You can't fake deep technical knowledge, and you can't learn it from business school case studies. Real expertise takes time to develop, and once you have it, it becomes virtually irreplaceable. The automotive industry is going through massive changes right now. Electric vehicles, autonomous driving systems, advanced battery chemistry. There's a lot of new technology that requires both innovation and reliability. Companies that prioritize presentation skills over engineering competence are going to struggle with these transitions. Companies that respect technical expertise are going to thrive. Morrison Engineering Solutions is positioned to be part of that future. We're working with clients who understand that thermal management isn't just about keeping batteries cool. It's about extending vehicle range, improving safety systems, and making electric vehicles practical for real-world conditions. The kind of work that requires the patience to get the timing exactly right, even when it takes 18 months of failed experiments to figure out that timing. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not fighting harder to stay at Autovolt, if I should have exposed Sophia's security breach or demanded credit for my work. But honestly, leaving turned out to be the best career decision I ever made. Working for myself means I get to choose clients who appreciate technical depth over corporate politics. The technology industry moves fast, but real engineering moves at the speed of physics and chemistry. You can't rush metallurgical testing or thermal stress analysis just because someone wants faster results. The companies that understand this principle are the ones that build products that actually work reliably. I still get calls from former colleagues at Autovolt asking for technical advice on projects they're struggling with. Some of them have joined Morrison Engineering. Others are looking for consulting work as the company continues downsizing. It turns out that when you lose the people who actually understand how your technology works, it becomes very difficult to innovate. Sophia's consulting firm sent me a LinkedIn connection request last year. I didn't accept it, but I did look at her profile. She's working on strategic digital transformation initiatives and integrated approach methodologies. I'm sure she's found her niche in the business world where those skills are valuable. The difference between business strategy and engineering is that strategy can pivot when market conditions change. Engineering has to work regardless of market conditions. Thermal management systems have to function whether the stock market is up or down, whether the CEO is 30 or 60, whether the presentation is confident or nervous. That's the beauty of real technical work. It's honest. Either the system works or it doesn't. Either the timing is precise or it isn't. Either you understand the physics or you're guessing based on incomplete information. Morrison Engineering Solutions continues to grow because our clients know they're getting proven technology, not hopeful projections. When Klaus Weber's colleagues ask him why they switched from Autovolt to a small independent firm, he tells them about watching a thermal management demonstration fail in real time, and then seeing the same technology work perfectly under identical conditions 6 months later. That's what competence looks like in the real world. Not PowerPoint slides or strategic visions, but systems that perform exactly as specified when you turn them on. Let me ask you something in your line of work, whatever that might be. How often do you see real expertise getting pushed aside for flashy presentations? How often do you watch people with deep knowledge get overlooked because they don't speak the language of corporate strategy? If you've been in the working world for more than a decade, you've probably seen this happen. Maybe it's happened to you. Here's what I learned from my experience. Competence doesn't always win in the short term, but it's unbeatable in the long run. The people who actually understand how things work will always find a way to succeed, even if they have to build their own companies to do it. Don't let anyone convince you that experience doesn't matter or that technical depth is outdated. In a world full of confident presentations and integrated approaches, be the person who actually makes things work.